Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Lewiński. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski praised the greater clarity which emerged recently on the controversial subject of Russian drones and jets that violate NATO airspace. Speaking on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, he said the recent announcements confirm the existing procedures which allow the use of force where circumstances so require.
One benefit of the last few days has been the clarification of this issue, also from the NATO Secretary General. It's nothing new. Mistakes happen, such as when an aircraft or ship violates another country's airspace. Maybe there's an error or a message. There are hotlines. Listen, a pilot or captain made a mistake. Well, everyone understands that. We've had such incidents with Russia too. If they admit their mistake, they apologize, we don't make a fuss about it. However, when it's deliberate, like the 21 drones fired at Poland, that's a different matter. Then the Air Force has its own procedures. Please ask the Polish Army for more details. But you know, there's interception, which means establishing visual contact. Sometimes they force a landing. Sometimes they fire warning shots. However, when the military deems that there is a real threat to the lives and property of Poles, it has a constitutional obligation to protect the inviolability of Polish borders. Imagine what would happen if Cuban MiGs flew over Florida or Mar-a-Lago. What would happen then? You have your answer.
US President Donald Trump said Ukraine has a shot at regaining territory, blasting Russia's war effort as wasteful, brutal and damaging to Moscow's reputation. Trump also argued that if it were America's war, it would have been over in 1 week.
Yeah, they have a shot at it because Russia.
What prompted you to change your thoughts on
Well,
that?
because I've been watching the way what Russia's been doing. I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever, and they are doing very poorly considering they have put it all out on the line. Their economy is going to hell. They're bombing the hell out of everything, and they're picking up a very little territory, if any. In fact, they're losing some territory. So I think it's been very bad for the reputation of Russia. This war should have been over. If this were our war, we would have had it over in 1 week.
Speaking at the UN General Assembly, European Council President Antonio Costa condemned Russia's continued assault on Ukraine as a blatant violation of the UN Charter and a threat to every nation's sovereignty. He pledged that Europe would keep up the pressure on Moscow while pushing for an immediate ceasefire and a just, lasting peace.
In Ukraine, a sovereign nation was brutally attacked by a permanent member of the Security Council in clear violation of the United Nations Charter, a clear violation of sovereignty, territorial integrity, the respect of internationally recognized borders, and the right to choose its own destiny. This aggression threatens not only Ukraine, it threatens every nation in this assembly. If we accept Russia's invasion of Ukraine, no country will ever be safe. We will continue to apply pressure on Russia to end this war. We call for meaningful negotiations and an immediate ceasefire and a just and lasting peace.
140 billion euros could be headed to Ukraine after Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz joined the growing chorus of voices calling for Russia's frozen assets to be used to finance Kiev's war effort. These calls come as the EU's finances are growing increasingly strained from the ongoing support for Ukraine.
After months of hesitation, the leader of Europe's largest economy is signalling a change of course. And this is Chancellor Merz's plan. It envisions giving Ukraine a €140 billion interest-free loan to buy military equipment, which the EU would also be involved in. It would be guaranteed by EU member states, financed from the EU's long-term budget starting in 2028, and repaid once Russia pays war reparations. Most of Russia's €250 billion in central bank reserves, frozen after the full-scale invasion began, are held by the Brussels-based securities repository Euroclear. So far, only the interest on these funds has been used to help service a Ukraine loan, but those revenues are now dwindling and Ukraine is desperate for cash.
Germany has been and remains cautious on the issue of confiscating the Russian central bank's assets that are frozen in Europe. But this must not hold us back. We must consider how, by circumventing these problems, we can make these funds available for the defense of Ukraine.
Some EU states also warned that tapping Russia's frozen assets could undermine confidence in Europe's financial system. But after more than 3 years of war and billions in EU aid, that thinking is starting to shift.
When Ukraine has such a need for financial support is not wise and is also putting a strain on the European member countries of the European Union, because they have, if this money is not mobilized in one way or another, they have to provide the support for Ukraine from their own budgets, and that is unpopular, or it is becoming increasingly unpopular in many countries.
Merz says the plan would require a majority of EU members to approve it, a step meant to keep Russia's closest EU ally Hungary from blocking the move.
Moldova oligarch Vlad Plahotniuc has been extradited just days before the country's parliamentary elections. Once Moldova's most powerful figure, he now faces charges tied to the so-called theft of the century. The 59-year-old former MP was arrested in Athens in July while boarding a flight to Dubai after Interpol flagged him for holding 16 passports. He is accused of being involved in the 2013 billion-dollar fraud that drained 12% of Moldova's GDP. Plahotniuc denies the allegations, but he remains under US and UK sanctions for corruption and attempts to sway elections. Moldovan authorities say he played a role in recent Russian efforts to destabilize the country. His return comes as the pro-European ruling PAS party faces a tough election battle against pro-Russian rivals. Two Hungarian fighter jets were scrambled in a response to multiple Russian aircraft flying close to Latvia's airspace. This follows earlier Russian violations of NATO airspace in both Poland and Estonia. Reports say the Hungarian jets took off from a Lithuanian airbase to intercept the Russian aircraft. They included a Su-30, Su-35 and 3 MiG-31 planes, all flying over the Baltic Sea close to Latvian airspace. The incident follows multiple Russian violations of NATO airspace over the course of September. Russia's recent drone incursions into Denmark have been described as hybrid attacks staged to spread fear, and Latvia's Foreign Minister Braže warns allies must step up investments in counter-drone defense. Braže recalls that Latvia itself saw a Shahed drone from Belarus crash on its territory last year, underscoring how unpredictable and asymmetric these threats can be.
So it's a hybrid activity. Danish government said it's a state activity that operates it. So we will wait for further assessments from our Danish colleagues, but very clear on allies' side, on our side, we all have to invest in counter-drone capability, and that can be wide variety of capabilities. And on Latvia's side, we did have a Shahed drone falling into Latvia. It was a jammed drone via Belarus, so it was not an attack on us, but it was last year. So since then, we have been consciously investing in counter-drone activity. But in the same time, these types of scenarios are asymmetric. It's very difficult to predict when and where.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen described the recent drone incursions over airports and critical sites in the country as hybrid attacks. designed to sow fear and division while exposing serious security vulnerabilities. The minister also said Denmark has raised its alert level, with police and the military now deploying anti-drone defences and coordinating closely with NATO allies.
Denmark has in recent days been subjected to hybrid attacks. Drones have been spotted at several critical infrastructure, military and civilian sites. We must anticipate similar attacks as more could come. They've exposed our vulnerabilities and were intended to create insecurity and division. These attacks should shake us awake, as a people and as a society. And how are we dealing with it right now? To start with, the authorities have raised the alert level and are preparing for different scenarios. This means, among other things, that in the coming days, both the military and the police will be more present and ramping up anti-drone defenses around critical infrastructure. At the same time, the authorities are in close contact with our allies, with the goal of quickly strengthening our capabilities to detect and combat drones.
Russia-backed hackers have targeted Finland's defense ministry website as cyber attacks on Finnish institutions and companies continue for the fourth day in a row, authorities confirmed on Thursday. According to Finland's cybersecurity center, the pro-Russian group No Name 057 claimed responsibility for the latest attack, announcing on social media platform X that it will, and I quote, continue targeting Finland's internet infrastructure. The group has reportedly been attacking Finnish websites since Monday, causing temporary shutdowns and disruptions. Targets include websites belonging to political parties, the government and major companies in the energy and technology sectors. The group has a record of attacking Finland, previously hacking the parliament's website in 2023 after the country joined NATO. During Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's visit to the White House, Donald Trump expanded on his previous statement about Russia being a paper tiger. He also shared his views about what his Turkish counterpart could do to help put the war in Ukraine to an end.
President Erdogan is very respected by both of them. Everybody respects Erdogan. They really respect Erdogan. I do. And I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that, if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia. If he did that, that would be probably the best thing. I'm very disappointed in Putin. And he's been fighting hard. He's been fighting long, and they lost millions. They lost like 1 million soldiers. And you know, with all of the heavy bombardment over the last 2 weeks, they've gained almost no land. Think of that. They've gained almost no land. And I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives, their lives. And they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop, I really do.
Turkey and the United States have signed a memorandum on civil nuclear cooperation during President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's visit to the White House. The talks also touched on Russian oil, US sanctions and the possible return of F-35 fighter jet sales to Ankara. The agreement was signed on Thursday by Turkish Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar, who called it a new initiative to deepen nuclear energy cooperation between Ankara and Washington. US President Donald Trump confirmed that Turkey may halt purchases of Russian oil following his Oval Office talks with Erdogan. The discussions also opened the door to lifting US sanctions and resuming F-35 fighter jet sales, suspended under the Biden administration. Erdogan's first White House visit in 6 years began in a friendly atmosphere, with Trump praising his Turkish counterpart as a very tough man. He renewed alignment underscores Ankara's hopes of leveraging Trump's deal-making approach for both economic and strategic gains, particularly within NATO. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World.